Welcome back, 365 Sports. Our good buddy Josh Neighbors, Big 12 watch over on Crystal Ball College Football. And Josh, I reached out to you because I'm very curious to hear your feelings. And we had Josh every week during football season, then decided to give him some time to stretch his legs, maybe get out and see the world, do something, learn something, maybe a new language. I don't know what he's done since he's last been on with us here at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. But the college football playoff 5-7 model and now possible expansion past that as they try to negotiate the deal with ESPN. Your thoughts on what they've decided so far and what you think the future is?
Yeah, good to be with you guys. What was your all's favorite moment of the 12-team playoffs? Do you all have one?
Man, it's so hard. There's so many, Josh. So many to sort through.
Right?
Yeah.
I loved the very first meeting about it. I mean, I don't think we can ever go back to like the salad days of, when they said, "Hey, let's maybe do this." Like, though, I felt we were innocent then, and now we've become so jaded.
Yeah. So I think I like the 5+7. It just makes a lot of sense. I think in an era where we're starting to, see obviously separation to the top, like the power two and whatnot. It's good to have a model that still does include, some teams that I believe are worthwhile because, I think about like the idea of a 14, 16, and also like the four automatic qualifiers. I think about the Big Ten this year. Maybe in the future it'll be the case, but like there were not 4 deserving Big Ten teams in this year. And I just think about like how those results played out. And I think even like if you were to say, like, a 12 team this year, like I would have a really difficult time putting Oregon in this year. Like you had 2 big games and you lost them both. Like, why does that team deserve to play for a national championship? So I think that there's ways to justify it, whatever, but I think a 5+7 does kind of allow you to have those arguments in a good way. 14, 16 is not going to allow you to have those. And it's going to hurt the regular season, especially in those conferences. And to me, I like the 5+7, but obviously it's overshadowed by the fact that as separation grows, like 5+7 is just going to be a short-term thing. It feels like, because if the ACC and the Big 12 and everybody else don't like what the Big 10 and the SEC are doing, they can go and do their own thing, which it'll do big numbers, but I actually don't know how long it will do big numbers for because I'm a big picture guys. A big picture. That's kind of my thought process is like college football needs regionality to make the sport matter. You can't just tell the entire Big 12 they don't matter and they don't factor in. Why would they watch Alabama versus Clemson? Like if I want to watch hell of a football, I'll just do it on Sundays. So you aren't giving me the top level and my teams have nothing to do with the teams that you have playing. So like if it's not the elite of the elite and K-State can't play these teams, why should K-State fans care about those teams? It's kind of my big question about all of this. And I think it's where we have to be careful about the big breakaway that's happening. Because like you tear the fabric of college football enough, you tear it apart, you're going to lose part of what actually makes it college football.
Yeah, the only thing I can think, Josh, is that the networks look at like getting $10 million plus for this Michigan versus whoever game, and they feel like, or at least the rationale that I see most of the time is, right. Okay, we'll lose a few 100,000 people that otherwise wouldn't watch, but we're still going to get $9 million for this game. And so I guess it's the trade-off perhaps that they feel is worth it. But I just don't know, to your point of like why you would want to alienate anybody, especially when you're so starved for content, and we know that you're going to want more and more and more games. So yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to run off some of your customers, even if you're still going to have a lot of customers left over.
And so I want to use it's a good point about like Michigan playing this team, but if you make every game that, it becomes less special.
Right.
So like what made Alabama and Michigan the juggernaut that it was? Michigan versus Bama in the Rose Bowl in a semifinal game, right? All of those things coalesced to make it the game it was. Bama versus Michigan special, but if you just give me Bama, if you give me steak every single night of the week, like some people, I could do it. Yeah, but like eventually, it's not going to be as good anymore. There's certain things that you have to make stuff special. And the thing about Michigan this year, Michigan played three big games, right? They played Penn State, they played Ohio State, 4, Michigan, and Alabama, then the championship game. But like the Big Ten championship game didn't mean anything. That was a meaningless game, right? A Maryland game was somewhat close, but like the big games are big because they have some meaning. And you need to make sure the games have meaning. If you oversaturate, if you just give me Oregon, Alabama every week, give me Oregon, Washington, and Alabama, USC, like it sounds good in principle and in theory, but like when USC is like they were last year and they're 7-4 and they're playing Alabama, and like, why should everybody actually care? It sounds really good, but I really do question in practice, can you give all of these great games every single week? Great games every single, because it's not the NFL. It's not the NFL. It's not the highest level of football. And so I actually wonder if you can do it. And like, if at some point, is there diminishing returns?
Yeah, there's, there's a lot of schools that thought that the 12-team playoffs should make everything better, right? It's more inclusive, it's more expansive. But then when you start, Josh, letting TV executives make these decisions and telling the conference commissioners what they want, to me, that's where you get into the slippery slope of they're just going, all right, we know that Georgia gets an average of 6 million and that Ohio State gets an average of 6 million. So if we put them together, that'll be 12 million, right? Or somewhere in that realm. And that's what we want to do. And then you get to the point of like, well, when Ohio State, play that game, against one of those Big 12 teams in the bowl, that pretty good ratings too. So, you're kind of, betting on something that may not necessarily be what you think it is all the time.
And also you have to factor in, like, soccer is a good example of this. Not sure if you guys are soccer fans at all, but Champions League, it does great ratings. It's like one of the biggest things across the world, in terms of internationally what's watched. But the thing about Champions League is you still have to play group stage games. Like PSG and Barcelona and Real Madrid all still have to play group stage games against teams, like Napoli, right? From Italy. They have to play teams from Portugal. So they have to play teams from different countries before they can get into the knockout rounds, before they get those bigger games, with the big brands played, before you get Manchester City, against Barcelona in the Champions League final. Like, you have to make it there first. And also you are playing your in league competition as well too, right? So Manchester City has to play Brighton and has to play Wolverhampton. And those games are still big, and they're big for Wolverhampton when they get to play City at home. That's why, like, that's basically the equivalent of Purdue gets to host Ohio State. And hey, it's not like Purdue doesn't win those games ever, right? Ohio State has pretty good records against everybody they play, but like Purdue's beaten them at times, and they beat them pretty badly a few years ago too. So it's not like these games, like, yeah, sometimes aren't competitive. Sometimes, yeah, like Ohio State wins most of the time, but I think it's still, you have to think about, you need to mix, like, you need Purdue, Ohio State, because you need Ohio State, Michigan to be special. Like, you don't get to 12-0 by playing Michigan 11 times, right? You don't get 12-0. You're going to be 9-3. You're going to be 10-2. You're going to be 8-4. And that's the one thing about it, is like, it's going to look more NFL. The problem is like the college does not have the built-in year-over-year stars. What makes Patrick Mahomes such a massive superstar is, how good he is, but also he's year number 8, so 7, 8 with the Chiefs now coming up next. You can't be in college for 8. Well, some guys are, but you can't be in college for 8 years, right? And so, like, we think about the big stars who have come across, college football, Johnny Manziel and Tim Tebow and Cam Newton. Like, those guys have to develop into stars, and so that's what makes them such massive figures. And you can't develop stars and make television ratings off stars the same way in college you can off pro. So you can't bank on Jags, Chiefs, the way they can. Or look, let's be honest, guys, it's crazy. In the NFL, Bills, Buffalo, New York, and Kansas City do massive ratings because they've got 2-star quarterbacks. Those are not massive markets. So it's because of those stars, which college can't develop. Like, you have to think about it like that too. In terms of strategy, you kind of need the crap in the middle to build up the big records and give you those big clashes and make them special.
Josh, when it comes to the Big 12, I mean, I think we all are realistic about their place. They're the third, fourth best conference in any given year. There's a clear gap that's developed with the Super 2 and the rest of the leagues out there. But with this 5 and 7, it pretty much establishes there's going to be at least one Big 12 team in the fray every year that'll have a crack at it. And then depending on what the future looks like beyond 26, maybe you're looking at a couple of teams guaranteed every year. But from a Big 12 perspective, how do you view the changes as good news, bad news, in the middle when it comes to the expansion of a playoff?
it's good news because you have basically guaranteed seat at the table. And I think sometimes too, I think about the Baylor Oklahoma State year. Like if you go back and you look at those two teams' records and you look at how the championship game was decided, it's pretty hard to argue that both those teams shouldn't be in. Right. So I think, like you're gonna have years like that. And then last year too is a good example, not the Texas year, but the K-State TCU year is a good case because look, K-State's your automatic qualifier in that situation. And then also TCU is going to make it in that situation too. And they end up being a top 4 or 5 team or top 4 team at the end of the year. But then they would definitely still be in it as an at-large, albeit. But so that's good. The one drawback is this. One Big 12 team has won a college football playoff game. It was TCU. They did beat Michigan, won this past year. They got dog walked by Georgia in the championship game. And now a Big 12 team at the bare minimum to make a championship game is going to have to win 2 CFP games, which has never happened before. And then sometimes they're going to have to win 3 games to even get to a championship game. Don't like your chances, right? You're really going to have to have some. I mean, it's going to have to be a gangbusters group. It's really going to have to be a special group to get the job done. And even I would argue that a Texas team like this year, just with the way they were built, was built to be a team that, if you were to extend the playoff out, I like the way that team stacks up just because it's built from the guts out. I like teams like that and their ability to compete week in and week out. A team like TCU last year is not, obviously, as we saw it, not built to compete week in and week out with top level teams just because, the trenches were not their strongest area. And so that's going to be a huge level of emphasis, man. Like, can these teams build strong interiors, win at those positions, that really define how championship games are often won? And we saw it this year, Michigan, Alabama playing a high level, trench warfare game. Like Washington had a bunch of old dudes up front, which really helped them a lot, and a decent enough defensive line.
And at quarterback.
So, obviously that's a big winning position, right? And that's. But here's the thing: is we've seen teams with good quarterback play before go Oklahoma, with all the quarterbacks, and it never really mattered. Washington was good enough at those positions to help supplement them and get them to where they were. It's just going to be really hard for a Big 12 team to build a winner like that. And we've got great coaches in this league, and we got really good players and good talent developers, but your talent has to come into a certain level on campus to kind of compete and win. And as we've seen things like the blue chip ratio from 24/7 Sports, the Big 12 does not recruit at that level.
No, they don't. Like, they're going to have and the Big 12 is really going to have to crush it in the transfer portal.
It's got to go all in on any given year, build up, and everybody's like, all right, 2026, we're going all in on NIL.
Yeah.
Get all the coffers.
It needs to be like Missouri, Missouri and Ole Miss, essentially.
Yes,
it needs to be like,
exactly.
they need to have, like those teams for next year. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk a little basketball, Josh. You got Houston and Baylor tomorrow, which should be a really, really good game, or you'd hope it would be a really good game. Houston has a way of making games that you think are going to be excellent, not good, because they've just played so damn hard all the time. But, you've got Texas and Kansas, which is Texas's last trip for the foreseeable future into the fog. So maybe not the best, top to bottom weekend, because there's a lot of, West Virginia and Iowa State. Iowa State should win that one. Tech on the road at UCF should be a tough place to play, but UCF's kind of fallen off. But those bookended games there, the first one and the last one, should be pretty darn good.
Yeah, so the Baylor game, I'm so excited for this. I mean, Houston, and I said this last week, and some people got mad at me about it, but they just value every possession, and they're basically going to ask the referees to call it. I mean, I was watching them against Texas, and they beat the brakes off them physically. I mean, just everything, every entry feed that's near the baseline's a double team. Every dribble drive is a hand check. And the thing that they do pretty well for the most part is they do not overextend in help situations. They have really good individual guard defense. And so you don't see guys coming over with lazy swipes. You don't see guys doing that off the ball. And they've got 2 guards in LJ Cryer and also Jamal Shedd. And also, Darion Williams has shot the crap out of the ball this year too. And honestly, Kerwin Walton has shot the hell out of the ball too. Not Kerwin Walton, but Darion Williams shot the hell out of the ball. I'm talking about Texas Tech players all of a sudden. The 2 guys, Cryer and Shedd, have shot the hell out of the ball this year. They've had those 2 guys who've led the way. And Shedd, they're better point guards, but he is this unbelievable 2-way player. He might be the best two-way point guard in the entire country. I love Dwan Harris, but Dwan Harris is not aggressive enough, I think, to get that distinction. And so there is no better two-way guard in the Big 12, and I think in all of college basketball than Jamal Shed. And I love the way Houston is physically. I mean, the fact that he can get this many guys, Kelvin Sampson, to play that way, like there's really no weak link on defense. It's crazy.
Dwan Harris is one of the most befuddling players to me I've ever seen. He is exactly what you want on defense, distributing the ball, and he's a good scorer, but for whatever reason, he does not like to do that. He just doesn't shoot enough, and they really need him to, and Bill Self tells him to, but it's just not kind of his thing. It's very strange.
It's funny because I go back to that Kentucky game, the first game of the year. I think it's the first or second game, whatever it was this year. And you go and you look at his performance that he had third game. He was 7 for 12, 5 of 6 from 3, 4 of 5 from the line. He had 23 points. And I think he had, 7 assists too. And when you play a Kentucky team that's got Reeves and Shepard and Dillingham, like he knew he had to bring it at that spot. And so it's like, why can't you do that more often? Now, here's the thing. They've won a bunch of games this year. But you kind of wonder why you can't do that more often. Also, but I will also say too, man, it's hard when you've got a team that is so reliant on 5 guys. Mm-hmm. And honestly, he's the director of everything. So like he's actually got to consider how much energy he's expending because and all those guys do because their minute totals are ridiculously high. Those have to be the best conditioned players in the country. And you look at the percentages of their bench scoring, their starters, like the highest scoring percentage in the country for starters. Their bench is not good at all. Losing Arterio Morris killed them. Marco Jackson's not very good. Nicholas Timberlake, I think I could play better defense than he does. He's been terrible on defense, especially into that Baylor game. So they're really good. I love McCullough. I love KJ. I love KJ Adams. Dickinson to me, like he's a walking double-double, but I don't think he's actually that good. There's a reason why he's not in the NBA yet. But like their 5 is good. And Furphy's been a revelation. He might end up being a one and done, but beyond that, they just don't have very much. And so while they're good now, I'm wondering how they handle this last stretch here because I think they might be just dog tired by the end of the season. And I think it might be another early exit for KU. Even though I feel like their top level is really good, they can just be dragged down because they can get pretty tired in games. And there's not a whole lot of guys they can turn to off the bench, in certain situations.
Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. Josh, I so enjoy our time together. Every time we have you on, always bringing the heat. I know it's like maybe a little bit sentimental and maybe you're uncomfortable now, but I don't care. I want the world to know how much we have fun when you're on the show.
And I've been today, guys. I turned 27 today, so I've been very, kind of reflective about.
Well,
and also
birthday.
did my taxes. Oh. I did my taxes as well today, which is like that. Also is reflective in a different way. It's like, and not a positive way. But I was like, hey, it was great to join you all this year, and I always have fun on Fridays when I get to talk with you guys.
Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch, the birthday boy. Go out and have a steak, Josh, with hopefully
pizza.
an impending massive tax refund. So.
Yes, let's hope so.
Yeah. All right, that's Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. Go like and subscribe to that channel and partake.